Hey guys, and welcome to this new video. In this video, I would like to introduce you to my server rack and the components that I use in my smart home. Normally, I don't make these vlog style videos, but I've recently watched quite a few of them because I find it really interesting to see what other people have for their smart home setups. So I thought maybe you would be interested in mine as well. Therefore, I would say, let's get started with my smart home setup. I thought we would start from the bottom and then slowly work our way up. At the very bottom is my old Gigabit Switch, which I have had since I got this rack, but I just never used it until now, simply because it is extremely loud and somehow also wastes a lot of power. Accordingly, I set it aside almost immediately after the purchase and said that I would prefer to use a different switch that is also significantly easier to configure. And I have this one here in case I need a larger switch again. But for now, it just sits here in the corner. Directly above is my current server, which runs on Nas Scale. I upgraded it in between. The hardware hasn't changed so far, so there is still a dual Xeon processor in it. This thing has a lot of power, at least on the CPU side. However, I also have to say that I am considering slowly sorting this part out. The only reason is actually that the power consumption of this device is simply so extremely high compared to other alternatives. And for this reason, I am considering replacing it, as I have only occupied 4 of the hard drive slots here. Hard drives are now significantly cheaper. So I have 2 10 TB drives and 2 4 TB drives in here. Nowadays, it would also be possible to simply get an 18 TB hard drive without any problem. And I don't really need TrueNAS with all its features. The home services are running elsewhere anyway, and using so much power here just for a NAS storage is actually unnecessary. Right above that, we come to an Offsite Backup. So this here is a TerraMaster with 4 hard drive slots, kind of the most affordable NAS option I know of. It's a reasonably solid NAS with a lot of storage. Directly above, my dream machine has been added this year, not a SE because I actually hardly need PoE at all. I tried to sort out my switch, which you actually see here. I might eventually pack the things back up, but my thought this year was to try to keep the power consumption as low as possible with devices that run continuously. And since I already have this dream machine here with 8 ports, I thought I would just try to empty the switch up here, unplugging all the devices that I really don't need urgently, and see how much difference that actually makes in power consumption. What you can also see is that there are 2 network ports connected here. The WAN port is plugged in here, and my O line is connected here. Then I have my backup line, which is my Vodafone backup internet, because I still have my Vodafone contract running. I thought it would be quite cool to have redundant internet here. Directly above is my Fujitsu Thin client, which I have installed in a self-printed case. My plan was actually to complete it to the point where one could essentially assemble a modular HE rack here. As you can see, I have already started to set up 2 Pis here. One is already inside as a test Pi, while the other one is still empty. And the idea should be that one can modularly say, I want 2 Ps on this side or 2 Ps here, or even 2 of the Thin clients, and thus build one's own rack with such small devices that would normally just be lying around in the corner, which would bother me extremely. On the server itself, my entire home network is currently running with Docker, which means we have 2001 Home Assistant Zigbee to MQTT, hence this USB interface here, which goes outside and then connects to the back where my decon stick is plugged in, providing my entire home network with Zigbee. Additionally, things like Plex are also running here. So basically, all the Docker containers that you have seen throughout the year, which I have set up, are currently running here. This also means that currently this server here depends on whether my home network is running or not, which I really don't like. There is an SSD built in here, so that's definitely a plus. Safer than any SD card in my opinion. Nevertheless, it can always happen that this part fails, which is why I am already working on a solution that could potentially become a new video project. Directly above, as mentioned, is a 24-port Gigabit Switch, as everything usually runs through it when it's not currently in the dream machine. Further up, we have a currently unused Raspberry Pi, which I usually take with me when I'm on the go, just so I can test things while I'm out. Additionally, I have a Home Assistant Zigbee dongle here and a second decon stick, which I can use for testing purposes and experiment with things independently of my home network. Up here we have an UPS which unfortunately has given up the ghost and urgently needs to be replaced by me so that the entire rack is UPS secured. Unfortunately, as mentioned, it just crashed, and that happened while I was out. Accordingly, I temporarily unplugged it. To the left of that, we have a backup server that turns on just once a week and is basically only meant to back up the data from down here to up there and to store it temporarily, so that the data is redundantly secured. Lastly, up here, it looks a bit like a cable chaos at first glance, but it's actually relatively easy to explain. Up here on the right, we have a UB Home Station, which is a Z-Wave gateway that can also be integrated into Home Assistant. I always test this from time to time, and I'm still considering whether I should perhaps do more with Z-Wave. Although the standard is somewhat more expensive, it also has several advantages. Firstly, it should be compatible with every device, and secondly, it allows for backups, meaning I could acquire this device redundantly and have two different bridges instead of just a single point of failure. Then I have a Philips Hue remote control here, which I need both to reset the remaining Philips Hue lamps that I have in the apartment and also simply for testing purposes. If I need a remote control to try something out, I can just use this one. On the left side is an ESP Home, which is actually just my Zigbee gateway to control all the switch bots I have in the network via Bluetooth. So this device is connected to Home Assistant, which connects to it and establishes a Bluetooth connection to the switch bots. This allows me to control it via Wi-Fi or HomeKit. Above it, there is a monitor in case I need to do something with the servers. The monitor is up here, so I can connect it and see what is going on. And lastly, here is the big cable chaos. Currently, as I mentioned, I am focusing heavily on both power consumption and redundancy. That means here are 3 Raspberry Pis simply connected to each other with this switch, and this here acts as a router, so that this is its own network. And the idea behind it is to have a completely low-powered 1000 smart home that guarantees high availability. That means if I were to cut the power from one of these devices, all the services would continue to run distributed across the other machines, and the traffic would be routed in such a way that I can access my smart home at any time. It's really not that simple. You have to engage with it quite a bit. I might turn this into a video series, but it would definitely go very deep. So feel free to let me know in the comments if you would like to see something like that. I will definitely be testing it at home. So the idea is that once this is completed in 2021, to simply install the 3D printed part into the rack so that you then have 3 or 4 Raspberry Pis in there powering the entire smartphone. I might also do the whole thing with these thin clients, as they have significantly more storage space due to the SSDs and of course function much more reliably because of the SSDs. However, I might reconsider and run it with, for example, a Raspberry Pi 5. Of course, I have also looked into the topic of Raspberry Pi 5. However, some things are still not working quite right. The Home Assistant installation is still not working at all. And as long as it is not at a stage where I can say that anyone could theoretically install it themselves at home, I have been waiting before making a video about it. But now, of course, I'm interested in your opinions. If you have any suggestions for improvement, ideas, or feedback regarding this smart home, feel free to write it in the comments. If you want to see more detailed videos on this topic, I can certainly do that. Otherwise, I would say see you in the next video. Until then, take care and goodbye.